So did you see that I pulled it up on Ground News? NATO, the European countries, sent additional troops to Greenland as U.S. Annexation threats escalate. Did you see how many they actually sent?
Um,
I wrote
I
it
knew
down.
they were sending troops, but I didn't know
Oh,
how many they were sending.
it's an army. It will hold off the entire American military
Mm.
if
Wasn't
need
it like
be.
just like a single AC-130 or something like that?
So France has committed 15 soldiers.
Mm.
Germany
Okay.
has committed a mighty 13 soldiers. I believe it was a reconnaissance unit. Uh,
Yeah, that'll do.
Norway and Finland have both each committed 2 soldiers. The UK and the Netherlands have committed 1. So if I'm Trump, let's say in a hypothetical world, Trump is he absolutely believes what he's telling everybody, that the threat to national security and NATO, you know, Russia and China are a huge threat in the Arctic. We need to have troops there. I would be absolutely furious seeing those numbers. I would literally be calling a Zoom meeting with all 6 of these people and being like, "Are you guys insulting me? What's happening right now? Do you guys
And don't we have like 150 troops on like that space base in the northern part of Greenland?
I think we have. I read somewhere 200, but we've ramped down recently. Uh,
S- I'm curious, do we actually have more troops in Greenland than anybody else? Is that a number to see?
um, so the U.S. has between a rotating contingent of U.S. Space Force and Air Force personnel of around 150 to 200. I would believe Denmark
How much do you want to bet we
maintains.
actually have more troops, U.S. troops in Greenland than anybody else?
Hold on, I'm assuming Denmark is the next highest. Uh, So Denmark, according to just a quick Google search, also has about 150. So altogether, they have about as many troops as the United States has deployed. I saw a meme. I was gonna send it to you. It said, let me look at this real quick. It's from Babylon B. NATO begs U.S. for emergency funding so they can defend Greenland from the U.S. I would be absolutely livid if I'm Trump. Like, if he genuinely, and you can debate whether or not he's believes what he's saying, but if he does, I would genuinely be offended. I'd be like, I'm sitting here telling you that I believe there's a security threat to this alliance,
Even
and this is
if
what
it
you're
were
committing.
me, I would be like, even more of a reason for me to take Greenland.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
hypothetically the threat is real. But apparently, like, I think last year, Danish intelligence reported that the Russian and Chinese had have amped up patrols and surveys, naval surveys in that area,
Well,
and
go
they
on.
didn't even take their own intelligence seriously.
Well, I'm
Like
curious.
they even had like in their own report was, hey, it's concerning the Russian and the Chinese are quote unquote doing Arctic research in the area surrounding Greenland. In all reality, they're mapping submarine routes, potential areas to put equipment in the event of like a pre-war scenario. I believe
I,
that was Danish intelligence, and they kind of just yeah, America bad.
I'm
There's
curious.
no threat.
I'm curious about that because I was watching a clip of, I believe it was the Danish ambassador that was in D.C. yesterday, and he had said, I believe I might be getting the numbers wrong, but I believe he said something like Denmark's intelligence hasn't seen any Chinese military activity up near Greenland since 2010, roughly.
Mm.
But at the same time, it's like I don't. This is where I don't really believe Trump. I think he's using this as like a casus belli for a potential takeover of NATO, or I mean of Greenland
Yeah.
rather, because China's busy ramping up with Taiwan. Do they have time to send a bunch of ships to the Arctic? And Russia is getting their ass handed to them by a bunch of Ukrainians. Do they have time? Like, I know that they have subs and stuff out there, but is it enough that we need to worry? And if we did, we already have treaties with Greenland and Denmark saying that, hey, you can build more bases up there anytime you want. You can funnel as many troops up
Yeah,
into Denmark or in Greenland as you want.
I believe we have kind of free reign of where where we want to build a base and how many troops we want to station in the area.
Yeah, I believe I've read that it was at the height. I think we had 15 bases up in Greenland.
Yeah, because like that treaty, like that 1951 defense treaty
Yeah.
that we signed with Denmark.
Yeah, it basically says we have free reign. We can do whatever the fuck we want up there.
Here's the thing: the United States has been kind of talking about potentially taking Greenland or annexing Greenland or buying Greenland from the Danes for quite some time. It's not.
It was when Seward's Folly or whatever with Alaska. I guess he had tried to persuade the U.S. government to buy Greenland as well.
Yeah.
So we've been
And I think
like at least 100,
the US
150 years.
And I think
years?
the U.S. Congress denied that too. They're
Yeah.
like, no, we don't need that. It's not important at the time.
Not that necessarily the Danes would have given it to us anyway, but yes, no, they denied it.
Yeah.
Now my thing is here's my problem, right? If again, I think this is all a pretext, just a justification. Trump wants to make a name for himself. I think he wants to have, his legacy be, oh, look, I added Greenland to the U.S. I'm very anti-colonialism. I have been very much against, for example, we've talked about before, I want to see Puerto Rico be a state. First off, if you want to add a 51st state to the U.S., Puerto Rico has voted several times in the past 15 years to join the United States and become a full-fledged state. The reason that they haven't, Republicans are scared that they will get 2 Democratic senators, and now the balance of power for the Republicans in the Senate will go away. So my thing is, let's say, I would like to see a referendum for Greenland. Hey, 3 choice. Do you want to stay with Denmark? Do you want to become autonomous? Do you want to become part of the United States? Let's say they vote to become a United States. I want to see a pathway to citizenship. Or, I mean, statehood. If we're just going to take them and then just have it as another colony, I don't want that. We already have, I looked it up today, a list of the U.S. territories. There's Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands, and American Samoa. That's not including Washington, D.C. as well. So we have a lot of U.S. citizens that don't have representation in this country. I don't want to add 60,000 more to the tally,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm a little opposite. I think might sound terrible, but there's a lot of potential in Greenland.
Absolutely.
And the Europeans aren't taking, obviously, you could see the reports, they don't even take their own defense seriously.
No, they've moved off the U.S.
They've relied on this since the fall of the Soviet Union in 91. They've slashed their defense spending by I think it was 90% or 95%. They're just like, oh, there's no threat.
Uncle Sam will take care of us.
Uncle Sam will take care of us. The U.S. We're under the U.S. nuclear umbrella and military umbrella. We're fine. We can just go pump our money into social programs and stuff like that.
Well, and to that point, for any of my leftist friends out there, one of my favorite things to talk about is the fact that when we talk about, oh, well, all these developed countries in Europe have universal health care. Yeah, because the United States is subsidizing their military. The reason the French have good health care and the British have their NHS, and not so much the Nordic countries, they are more newer to NATO and stuff. But all that is because we have basically promised no matter what, we will back you. We spend 10 times their combined budget on the military, and we subsidize their military. Yeah. That's how they can afford that.
It's almost like an Israel scenario where, we give them $3 billion a year.
What did you say? They just passed
for their own defense.
Another $3 billion bullshit.
We got more to talk about that. But back to the Greenland, I don't know. I see it as I think it's if Trump's pushing hard enough, I think you're going to see some concessions from Greenland and possibly Denmark, and maybe not becoming a U.S. territory, but becoming a U.S. protectorate.
I don't think that there will be like a lot of people
some kind of agreement that the U.S. has free reign over their natural resources. They get a cut, obviously, but no, if we decide, hey, there needs to be some kind of development in in rare earths or something like that, or we have kind of free reign on that.
Well,
And maybe they get a cut, or
I could see them maybe doing something like, hey, we have spent so much money on you guys' defense. We want X percentage of all mineral revenue or something. Because here's the thing. A lot of people, are talking about, oh, the U.S. is going to militarily invade Greenland or something like that. I don't think that's going to happen. And the main reason is it takes about a generation to turn a populace from one nationality to another. So, like, let's say the U.S. takes over Greenland, it would take about a generation, roughly, for them to consider themselves American. Here's the big problem.
True.
Let's
but
say
there's only 57,000 of them,
well,
right?
well,
so
here's
what's
my
stopping mass migration from the United States if it becomes a territory?
well, here's my thing. Is
And
that if a let's be
we
realistic.
whitewash their population.
Let's be realistic. Let's say, in this hypothetical world, Trump says tomorrow, I'm sending the Marines to Greenland. We're seizing it. We're owning that. That's going to be a U.S. territory, a U.S. protectorate, a U.S. state, whatever. Let's be real. The Republicans would get clobbered in the midterms at that point. If they wait till after the midterms, let's be real, Vance is not winning, in all likelihood, the 2028 election at that point, because that's just going to be a rallying cry for the left. So what's to stop?
I don't know. I think the opposite. I think the complete opposite.
Oh, I think getting us into an unprovoked war on an ally, one of our oldest, an ally we've had for 235 years.
Here's the thing, though: would it become a war?
Let's say it did in this hypothetical world. I mean, Denmark has said, let's again say that everybody follows through with what they're talking about. Denmark said they'll invoke Article 5 if the U.S. attacks Greenland, and that they would consider it an act of war, an act of aggression.
And
so let's
come
say,
protect them?
well, let's say hypothetically, again, Denmark, Danish soldiers stationed in Greenland or whatever, defend the island. Some Americans die, some Danes die, or whatever. I don't think that's going to rally the right. I think you're going to have a lot of people on the left going, hey,
No.
you just got a bunch of Americans killed for something we basically already had. And so even still, my main point on this is, let's say that a Democrat won in 2028 at that point. What's most likely the first thing that they're going to do? They're going to either A, tell Greenland, hey, you're going back to Denmark. B, you're going to be your own autonomous government now. You're an independent nation. Or C, hey, we're going to give you the opportunity to have a referendum. I mean, because that's going to be the first question that every Democrat's going to be asked on the Democratic debate stage if Trump forcibly takes Greenland is, what are you going to do with Greenland? And if any of them say anything other than give them the choice to, have their own future, or go back to Denmark or whatever, they're not winning the Democratic primary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So I've seen this survey. 75% of Americans oppose U.S. attempting to take control of Greenland. Republicans are split 50% supporting, 50% opposing, while Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents show 94 opposition, including 80% strong opposition. About 8 and 10 independents also oppose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that survey that was done.
Well, and I'm curious, does that survey...
But at the same time, we feel the same. We do the same thing with Puerto Rico, right? We've been talking about statehood for quite some time, but both the left and right in Congress leave it as the status quo.
Well, that's kind of my point. I don't want to see a future for Greenland where it's the exact same. Again, the whole purpose of, every American learns by the third grade taxation without representation. Every third grader learns that, you get a voice in Congress, you get, all American citizens get this. No, not all Americans.
Congress. They just can't vote in the presidential
election. They get a token, hey, you get to observe and watch Congress.
Yeah,
that's why
you can send somebody.
That's why the Congress won't vote for statehood for him, because again, it's a political thing at this point. Of, in all likelihood, Puerto Rico would be Democratic. They would probably have 2 Democratic senators, and Republicans don't want that. And even if they are, more conservative, I mean, we saw the Latino vote isn't guaranteed for Democrats. We saw that in the last election. Democrats don't want to flip that coin either.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, to that point, you pushed away a strong base that was always reliably Democrat, and most of those, just kind of going off this topic, but most Latinos actually believe in strong borders, and I,
Funny how that works.
I think both. Funny how that works. I think if we were to, I think this is, again, I don't want to, hawk up Trump too much on this, but I think this is kind of like his art of the deal kind of thing, right? Take a strong position on something, an extreme position on something,
Hmm.
and work to concessions,
Yeah, that's why I think
right?
it's going to be something more like, hey, if we're going to subsidize your military, you've got to give us mineral profit. Because I think that's what this is ultimately about.
Yeah.
It's the same thing
Or,
with Venezuela, like how it was actually about
mhm.
oil. I don't think this is about Arctic security. I think this is 100%
Well,
about Greenland's
I
minerals.
mean, at least he's being upfront and honest about it. He could have said weapons of mass destruction, and we have to look for
Well,
their nuclear weapons.
upfront and honest, he gaslit America for 2 months saying it was about drugs, and then the moment we took Maduro, he was like,
Okay,
"Okay, we've got the oil, guys," and it was like, "Wait a minute, I thought this was about
okay,
drugs."
and George Bush and Barack Obama. Well, George Bush started it, and Barack Obama continued it. Of let's stick in fucking Iraq for 20 fucking years, on the pretext of weapons of mass destruction.
Hey, hot take. Fuck those guys too.
Yeah, I mean,
Super hot
at
take.
the end of
Lying to the American people
first,
to justify military intervention is bad.
yeah, I mean, the Bush administration and weapons of mass destruction. Then the Obama administration was we're leaving. Then ISIS is the JV team. That turned out well. Uh, 20 years and $3 trillion later, we finally got the fuck out. Oh wait, no, we're still there.
Well, and that again to the point of Greenland being about minerals. I think
Yeah,
he's made it clear he wants to guarantee a good supply of resources. I mean, look at Ukraine. One of the first things he was talking about with a potential deal with Ukraine was, hey, we get some of their rare earth minerals and their
yeah,
resources. So that's
yeah.
why I'm like, this is 100% at the end of the day about. It's not about Arctic security. It is 100% about what Greenland can do for the U.S.
Yeah, I think I seen something. It was like listing um, natural resource wealth of every country, right? And Russia was on top with like 75 trillion. The United States was like two or three. I think Canada was number two. U.S. was three, and I think Greenland was actually like, I think it was within the top 10.
I'm not gonna lie to you. 100% zoned out there for a minute. Who was number one?
Russia,
Ah,
then
the Russian people wouldn't
Canada,
fucking know it.
or I think Canada was number two. The U.S. was number three, China was number four, and I think Greenland was in the top 10. So, you know, it's definitely about the natural resources, and I think it's, hey,
Well, look at the little,
consume, take Greenland's resources or have some control over Greenland's resources, and we extract their stuff, right? It's kind of hard to do in the US. We have way too much red tape, regulation, this and that. It's always been the US position. Use everybody else's resources first. Why
yeah,
destroy and consume ours when we can take everybody else's?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm. It's. I don't know. I'm curious to see how this plays out, especially, long term. I like I said, I don't think we're going to take any. Canada's not going to be the 51st state. Greenland's not going to be the 51st state. I think there's too much. There's not enough political willpower there for anybody to add a state anyway. As with, like I said, we've
I
seen
mean,
with
I could
Puerto
see
Rico.
Greenland eventually becoming a U.S. territory zone.
Listen,
I
the
think there might be something where we have stronger ties to Greenland, right? Whether it's resources, whether they become a protectorate, whether it's some kind of, hey, you're part of us but not part of us. I think eventually in the future it moves to something like, hey, well, maybe you start blending into American culture and the American system
listen the
rather than the European system.
the nationalist in me has wanted to see the United States of North America for a very long time. I
I
let
like it
me
too. I like the idea
let's
of it too.
let's add a couple maple leaves to the flag. Let's
Hmm.
add, whatever that weird circle is from the Greenlandic flag. Let's add the eagle and the snake from the Mexican flag. Now that's one actually. He's threatening Mexico and Colombia at the moment. I think that's one that he actually is being honest about for the most part. Where it comes to, he's talking about drugs. I'm actually in favor of that. I've said for a long time, if I were dictator, the first thing I would do is call up the Mexican president and say, "Hey, you have two options. You can take care of the drug problem, or I can take care of the drug problem."
Yeah.
Uh, and Mexico clearly can't. I mean, they are constantly, certain states they don't even really have control over.
Yeah, the cartels do.
The Sinaloa cartel, and there's that other
Yeah,
big one
that,
that's fighting
and
them.
most of we believe most of Mexican politicians are corrupt or
Well,
tied to the drug
that's
cartels.
because the ones that aren't die. They're, the Mexico. Was
Yeah,
it what city was it? Like a month or two ago, that was protesting down there because like some politician got assassinated.
yeah.
So
And,
I
and they actually built a giant metal wall around the Capitol.
I'm in favor of calling up. I forget her name off the top of my head. The Mexican president and saying, "Hey, we can help you on this, or we can do it ourselves. But either way, it's happening, and if you resist, I will consider you an enemy as well, because there is,
Yeah,
a large, drug trade coming from Mexico. We know a lot of drugs are made in Colombia. That's not really up for debate. I mean, so I'm all. Those are the actions I'm okay with. When we're talking about striking sovereign nations and stuff and throwing around our military, I'm okay when it's like, hey, this is a clear and present danger to the American populace. I compare it to the fact, if we knew, let's say hypothetically, anthrax was getting smuggled into the US from China and unleashed on the American populace was dying from anthrax poisoning, the government's not going to sit around and just be like, well, it's a sovereign nation. If they want to make anthrax, no, we're going to go to war with China. How is this any different when you've got a bunch of Americans dying from drugs, and not even necessarily dying, but just the families that are getting destroyed, the people that are getting harmed because of it, you know? So I'm perfectly okay with that use of our military.
yeah. It all goes part of the Monroe Doctrine. We've lived in such an era of peace since the fall of the Soviet Union.
Well, peace
You
on our
know,
side of the world, not so much in the Middle East.
well, yeah, but I mean, up into the '90s, we were conducting military operations in Central America. I think there was Operation Just Cause.
I think the last one was what,
That's when
Panama
we
in
invaded
'89.
Panama '89 to '90, and the Contra War in Nicaragua 1990s. We've been messing around. It's our backyard. It was part of the Monroe Doctrine. We've been involved in one way or another for quite some time. It's just after the fall of the Soviet Union, we're like, oh, peace on earth. There's no great threat to the United States. Let's focus on ourselves. And now that we're kind of like, we're stepping back into this, we're retreating. Well, slowly retreating from the rest of the world. And we're starting to look in our own backyard and starting to get involved. And people are, oh, this is lunacy. This is the U.S. is being you know uh,
We're turning into Nazi
aggressive.
Germany and we're attacking our
We're turning into
neighbors.
Nazi Germany or a hegemony. It's like, no, we've always been like this. We've had a 30 years of kind of not getting involved, but we've always kind of been like this. It's just we've been kind of bogged down in the Middle East for the past 20 some freaking years. We're slowly trying to step out of it, as long as Israel doesn't get us into another war
Iran.
or start bombing Iran again. I think you're going to see more of this. And going back to the Greenland thing, I think Trump mentioned that he wants Greenland because it's essential to the Golden Dome. And I think he's right by what he means when he says we need it for national defense. They want to make it part of the Golden Dome. They want it to be U.S. territory. They want the natural resources. I think one way or another, he's going to get some kind of concessions
Oh yeah.
out of Denmark. So, hey, people, this is the world we live in, right? We're starting to get back into a world where great powers are jockeying for, their position in the world. This is just the start of it.
Yeah, my problem with that is look how well that's ended for every empire in human history. Like, let's check in on the British Empire,
Hold
the
on,
French
though.
Empire, the Spanish Empire, the Portuguese Empire,
What was
see
the
how they're
Cold
doing.
War?
What's
What
that?
was the Cold War? What was the Cold War?
Yeah, a Cold
Were we
War.
not doing what were no? We say it was a Cold War, but there were many hot, conflicts during the Cold War.
Yeah, but the empires
the Soviet
of
Union doing stuff. We were still,
but the empires didn't
with
go to bat against each other. Which is what it seems
yeah,
is
but
like on the horizon.
it's all proxy wars. I mean, at the end of the day,
For now, I mean,
we're
wait till
jockeying for
Taiwan
position.
wait till Taiwan kicks off. That's not going to be a
Well,
proxy war.
I think I don't think people realize that there's a good chance of that actually happening. Part of Xi Jinping's stardom and his hold on power is he says he's building China to take back Taiwan or unify the country, right? They never actually technically had Taiwan, but to unify the country, like that's his entire pitch for his control on power. It's going to happen whether we step in. That's kind of whether World War III starts or not, or a hot conflict in that region.
I don't know.
I think I think a lot of people don't actually think that might happen, but like, if you believe him, and at the end of the day, it's a China. They could remove him, right? If
they won't. The Chinese people.
His hold on power is, I'm going to take Taiwan. People better start believing that. China's rising. They're becoming an economic powerhouse. They definitely beat us in manufacturing. They're becoming, military powerhouse. At some point, he's going to do something to prove his worth, essentially, to the Chinese people. Especially if economically they start falling, what do we see when that happens? Rise in nationalism. It's happened in the United States. You can say with Donald Trump. A lot of people recognize the United States was we didn't recognize our own country anymore. We couldn't manufacture anything. We people would feel some type of way about the economic condition. It led to, a populist national rising within the United States, and Donald Trump.
I don't know. I think just going back to this idea of like the great powers determine the fate of the smaller powers, and we're all jockeying for
history
position.
Of humankind.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point. Is look at how well are the empires of old faring? Let's check in with the British. The Islamic Caliphate of United Kingdom. Let's check in with the French. Let's check in with the Japanese.
I wouldn't even relate that to great power competition. I would relate that to $40 trillion in debt.
No,
that's the greatest threat we have to our country.
Fair. Well, again, another reason. Well, to that
we
point,
did that to ourselves.
To that point, he's talking about buying Greenland. Can we afford to buy Greenland right now?
I seen a report that it would cost $700 billion. Technically, to buy. I don't know where they got that number. What it was about.
Yeah, I mean, that's
$700 billion. I mean, we spend that more than that on our military every year.
And that's a problem in and of itself to go to the economy is. Listen, so I am always all in favor of like universal health care. I'm in favor of social programs. I am in favor of all the the fun little things, pay for daycare, as long as it's not going to leering centers and stuff. Here's my thing is we spend our money stupidly. Whenever we talk about, whenever a Democrat gets on stage and they're like, oh, I want to have universal health care, you all inevitably have some talking mouth head on the right, Jesse Waters or some shit. Where are we going to get the money from? I don't know. Stop sending money to Israel. Stop sending money to, to Pakistan for gender studies. Stop sending money to Colombia for transgender plays. Listen, for all the fucking terrible things I think Doge did, as far as like cutting USAID and things like that, there was a point to be made there of the U.S.
Yeah.
spends a lot of money on stupid shit. I mean, even in our military, yeah, we kind of like brag about, oh, we spend all this much, on our military. We spend more than the next like 10 countries combined and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but when we're spending $1,000 for a bag of ball bearings, when we're spending, $10,000,
$36,000 for a bag of all bearings.
yeah, when we're spending $10,000 on a coffee cup for the Air Force, things of that nature, the use it or lose it program, because Congress doesn't want to do their job. It's like, okay, I'm not seeing anything for this. Like Trump's talking about a $1.5 trillion defense budget next year. It's like, okay, but are we getting, like I ran the numbers with you recently, like an aircraft carrier is like $15 billion. Like, okay, well, why don't we have 35 aircraft carriers being made a year then? Where's this money going? Because every fucking person in the military I know talks about how underpaid they are. We always hear about how, our military, the vehicles are falling apart and the bases are in disrepair and there's mold in the barracks and the VA is terrible and this, that, and the other. It's like, well, where the fuck is this money going then? Because the Pentagon hasn't passed an audit in 8 fucking years. And the argument I heard for that actually recently was, oh, that's a right-wing talking point. It's because I believe it was Destiny was making this argument. It's because they're in the process of updating their how they account for everything, and they basically said ahead of time they wouldn't be able to pass an audit while they were transferring, over to this new program or whatever. It takes 8 fucking years. What are you talking about, my guy? My thing is if we would have great social programs if we stopped spending our money on dumb shit. If we stopped handing it out to everybody who's not American.
Yeah, I think I told you about this. Johnny Harris, he's kind of a in my point of view, a left-leaning reporter, but I love his breakdowns. He does awesome videos, deep dives. He did one on military spending. And I can't cite the numbers. I wish I would have had that in front of me, but he kind of broke down how the money works and where it goes, and it's kind of crazy how much is spent in different areas. You would think that procurement would be getting a lot more money, but I think it was like a small number, well, relatively large, what we think of, but like overall budget wise, it's kind of small. And I think research and development was only like $140 billion. I think procurement was like maybe 120, 160 billion. The rest was like troops, logistics, base upkeep, a lot of money going to different areas that I didn't realize it was actually going to. I was kind of astonished. I'm like, why do we spend so little on procurement of new equipment? Why do we spend so little on research and development? All that's going to, maintaining these fucking 800 bases worldwide.
That's another thing.
Do we really need 800 fucking bases?
That's another thing. If it is not of vital U.S. interest, I think it should be, hey, we're calling up whatever, insert country here that does not benefit U.S. interests. Hey, we're going to pull our base out and we're going to bring our troops home. If you want to keep that base, that's fine. However, like if you want Americans to stay there, however, you pay 100% of the cost for it. The fact that we are paying all of this for, to have bases in Turkey and Britain and, all these other countries that don't necessarily, I mean, some of them have their, importance, but do we need, 112 bases in Iraq and Afghanistan or anything? We're not over there anymore. Why are we doing that? Because Iran and because Israel.
Why do we need, why are we completely paying for bases in Germany, Spain, Great Britain? I don't think we have any bases in France.
Well, like the German one, like the name escapes me. Ramstein is for example.
Yeah, like the largest base outside of the United States.
That one makes sense because that's like a mass supply hub for in the event of a potential war with Russia. I'll let that one slide. But let me look this up real quick. Maybe if I spelled it right.
That's my point though. Is like, okay, if we should be hitting that point where okay, Europe's against us taking Greenland. Understand, you guys have a strong position on that. I completely understand your argument, but yet you rely on us for your entire defense, and we fund that.
Yes.
And you live at the leisure and the protection of that. So my personal opinion, fuck you. You should be paying for it then. Why am I paying for it?
So this is just quickly. I just looked this up. This is from Al Jazeera. The U.S. What year was this? Is this from this year? No, 2021. So this is from a couple of years ago. U.S. military presence around the world. U.S. has about 750 bases in at least 80 countries around the world. It has approximately 173,000 troops deployed in 159 countries. The amount of dots I am seeing on this map in Germany, in Turkey, in what is that? Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't know why Iraq's name escaped me. Africa, a shit ton in Central America, a bunch in the Pacific Islands, a bunch in the Indian Ocean, some in Australia. Why? Listen, Niger. If you want a U.S. military base here, I'm sorry, we're kind of working on ourselves right now. We're bringing these boys home. If you want that, you got to figure out how to pay for it, or give us mineral rights or something like that. Italy. Yeah. Why do we have? It looks like there's 23 dots here in Italy. Why? When we have massive bases in Germany, and Germany's a 1 hour drive. It's like. I understand having bases in Japan and South Korea and parts of the Pacific Ocean. I understand
hotspots.
Yeah, I understand having some in Turkey and Germany. Those give us quick, reaction time to Russia or the Middle East if need be. Outside of that, hey, I don't see a point for it.
No, I mean at this point, the Europeans should be stepping up and starting to cover their own defense. And I know that's part of Trump's pitch and his national policy. I forget what that national security policy is, to start scaling down our resources in Europe, and they should be taking over a lot. Well, I say start moving as fast as possible.
To that point, when we were doing all that shit with the Houthis a year or two ago, why the hell was it that we sent an entire battle fleet over, a carrier task force? Meanwhile, I think the Canadians sent what? It was the Canadians sent one destroyer. I think the British sent one, and the French sent two or something like that. That trade doesn't affect us. And I'm all for, hey, keeping world peace and stability and stuff like that. I believe, those who can help should. So I do, to an extent, I believe the U.S. should play a part in maintaining global peace and stability. With that being said, why are we the only ones doing it? Especially when the Suez Canal trade affects Europe more than it affects the United States.
And I think J.D. Vance called that out, and it was part of that Slack leak and from Pete Hegseth or Hedgeth or whatever the hell his name is. Hegseth. J.D. Vance mentioned, he's like, I don't get why we're involved. We have 3% of American trade goes through the Red Sea every year. Why are we sending an aircraft carrier strike group?
Yeah, it should have been the exact opposite. It should have been, hey, we're going to send 2 light cruisers to do some training missions over there, some live fire tests. Britain, France, Italy. This is on you guys to figure out.
Those are your ships they're shooting at.
Yeah, we will provide some help. We'll provide some logistical support if you want or whatnot. But the fact that we sent the majority of forces over, we spent the majority of the money, we spent the majority of the munitions, fired. How does, like I said, I'm fine with helping. I'm fine with Britain calling us up and going, "Hey, America, shit's not looking good over here. We need a helping hand." Cool. We're allies. I have no problem. We'll send over a couple ships. No big deal. But why are we funding it all? And then
Yeah.
I have to listen to Europeans talk shit on fucking Twitter and TikTok and shit like that. Oh, you Americans don't have free healthcare. You Americans have terrible education system. You Americans is that. Yeah, because I'm doing all the work to keep you guys from like starving to death. You guys.
We're keeping.
We kept sending ships in the 1940s to keep you guys fed. We never stopped. It seems like
Yeah, it never stopped.
it just
You
continued.
know, we're the ones stopping the Mongolian hordes from invading you right now. You're welcome. Enjoy your first world problems.
Yeah, exactly. That's my problem is I want all these progressive things, but every time I talk about like let's step up on education. I'm for tuition free college
Mm-hmm.
with guardrails. Like I don't think you should be able
Without
to
a doubt.
just I don't think you should just be able to take, interpretive dance or, change your major 35 times and that be funded on the taxpayer. I think, there should be some rules with it. But for the most part, I'm for tuition free college. I'm for, public paid secondary education. But we can't fucking afford that because we're doing everybody else's dirty work for them. And I know to an extent, the reason we do that is we have the most highly trained military force in the world. We want to keep it that way. One reason we're so effective is
Always ready.
we constantly have people with combat experience compared to like the French, who they haven't fought a fucking war since the 60s. But we can't. This is not sustainable. This isn't sustainable, especially when, like I said, Trump's talking about a larger. Because no president, for whatever fucking reason, for the past 20 years, can sign a defense bill that is even a cent smaller than the one the year prior.
Well, I'm Republican. I'm all about national defense. I'm all about having the biggest, most powerful military in the world. But what's the limit? What's the limit on debt? What's the limit on that spending? At some point, we need to tax more or we need to spend less. And strange words coming from a Republican. Why don't we tax more? I get it. I don't. At the end of the day, I don't want to spend, pay more in taxes. But
I think at this point we have no choice but to do both in order to get our debt.
Do both. Yeah, get our both. We can figure something out with national defense and still keep the most powerful military in the world. It's like what you talked about, mentioned. The use it or lose it. Maybe we pull back from a lot of these bases. We start making other people pay for it. That way, we're getting more value out of less.
Well, in my opinion, the biggest problem with the military spending is the use it or lose it, because Congress can only work 89 days a year or the world fucking ends. So they can't be bothered to sit around and do the job they're elected for, which is, hey, figure out how much money everybody needs and allocate that. So instead, they just sit there and, well, you used $40,000 last year, so you'll get $40,000 this year. So that incentivizes people to use that money, because if you only use $30,000, if we gave you $40,000 last year and you only use $30,000, well, you only need $30,000 next year. Well, hey, I might actually need that $10,000 next year. I don't know why these companies, these departments don't have like savings accounts or something, but whatever.
But maybe like a military base has its own savings account.
Yeah, hey, we gave you $4 million to play with last year. You only used $3 million. Cool. We're gonna, reevaluate this year. Keep that extra $1 million as a rainy day fund. But again, this all requires Congress to do their job, which, that's. I have a better luck of stepping outside and, I don't know, having a leprechaun walk me to the nearest pot of gold or something.
Well, the only time they'll actually seem to do it is when it, there's political favor and maybe there's a camera in front of them. They can, get in a few good talking points and call it quits after that for about a week or two.
Oh, the moment it comes to fucking over the American citizen, suddenly they're all about doing their job. Hey, we want to raise taxes on you guys. Together. We want to raise taxes on you guys for no reason. We want to screw you over with this no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. You know, we want to increase the military budget or something. Oh boy, we are going to have unanimous votes all around on this.
Absolutely. We'll sign that or we'll vote on that and get that all put together when we get back from our trip from Israel.
Yeah, I got to go over there and touch some wall and wear a fucking whatever that little hat is to cover your bald spot.
Never mind the fact that we snuck out extra $10 billion in for them and their defense. They really need it, guys. I mean, it's a tough world out there for them. The whole genocides and all. You know.
Yeah, I mean they're constantly the
Hot topic. We're canceled.
Schrodinger's nation. You know, Schrodinger's oppressed people simultaneously under attack from all sides while conducting multiple offensive military operations. We're going to strike 38 countries that surround us, and we're the oppressed ones. If you can't tell, I'm not a fan of Israel.
Somebody strikes back, and it's their fault.
If somebody strikes back, I'm going to carpet bomb your civilians. Speaking of shooting civilians, Renee Nicole Good shot by an ICE officer, and then another ICE-involved shooting last night. I don't know if you saw that one.
Should we continue this or make this on a new episode?
We can split it.
Split it?
Yeah, we can. I don't know. I'm still recording, so we can split it if need be.
Come back for part 2, everybody.
It might all be one episode. Who knows?